Hey professionals, Sophia Sarah Joseph here, author of Choreography of Awakening, international speaker, former Olympic figure skating coach, and founder and creator of imagintlife, a revolutionary path to mastery of self that leads towards creation of your masterpiece, the life you were born to live according to your life's blueprint. Welcome to Professionals on Air podcast, a podcast where we discuss how to walk, talk, live, and grow authentically as a professional in the 21st century. It is my intention to bring you diverse and exciting speakers and prove that no matter where we come from and what we do, there are clear laws that work through us all that we can tap into to create what we desire. Do you know what happens when an award winning novelist and a former Madison Avenue advertising executive, both with master's degree in spiritual psychology, join forces to write a spiritual science fiction, a multi-dimensional interplanetary adventure? Awake. A novel poised to make a dent in the universe to become one of the catalysts for global awakening. And today I'm honored to introduce you to Awake's two brilliant co authors, Dana Dunbar and Julia Padava. Welcome, ladies, and thank you so much for your gift of time and wisdom to share with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, thanks for having us, Sophia.
Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to become authors.
Well, I was an avid reader when I was young. Books were my kind of escape from a bit of a crazy household, and I just read voraciously. And I thought authors were kind of like on this pedestal. They were my heroes, and but I always had this desire to be one. It took quite a while to actually begin writing because of a failure of courage, as Sue Monk Kidd, one of my favorite authors, talks about in her own path. But when my life just would not work out until I started to follow the guidance that I was being given and start to write. So I started at about 28 years old and haven't stopped since.
How about you, Julia?
Um, for me, it was a little bit different. I never set out to be an author per se. I was always a good writer from the as young as I can remember. I always loved to read both fiction as I got older, nonfiction, and I wrote in various forms. I wrote academically in college. I wrote a very elaborate honors thesis that was like a PhD level sort of thesis, and I got into advertising and I wrote there, and I wrote articles. I had different experiences with writing. And then when I became a professional coach, part of my coaching was creative and creativity coaching. And I often collaborated with people on various projects and got more and more involved in writing and editing there. So it sort of was an evolution as part of a bigger context of creativity and writing.
Well, how did you come together and decided to start writing Awake?
We became friends, and I quickly realized I had been writing. I had already had two books published, and I quickly realized that Julia was the smartest person that I had ever met, and totally brilliant. And so when I was writing Awake, which is an epic, giant epic adventure that really took absolutely everything I had to. I wrote a first draft and I asked her to read it, and she looked at it and just was, with her brilliance, saw so many things that needed to be done that would uplift it. She just saw a diamond in the rough, as she calls it. So she started to help me with it, and then we became partners because of her incredible. It's been a total co-partnership along the way.
Well, that sounds to me like that I was coaching when I was coaching skating, and I would like choreograph a program, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is really good," and then like a choreographer comes in. And they're like, oh, you can add here and here and here, and all of a sudden the thing blooms into something amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a little bit like, not that I mean, we would love to have this trajectory, but a sort of famous example of this is Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, who are, the famous actors who wrote Good Will Hunting together. Matt Damon started on the project on his own for a class, and he had started a draft which really had a lot of potentiality, but it wasn't what it needed to be to get onto the screen. So there's sort of a similarity there, and we would love our destiny and trajectory to be as successful as theirs. But when they talk about their partnership, it reminds us a lot of our own.
Well, it takes tremendous courage to write to begin with, and then to share, and then to come together and trust in that partnership in writing. So tell me a little bit more about how do you work this relationship together in that writing.
It has a lot of different, people ask us this, and it's interesting because we have so many different ways we work, where Dana, has written the first draft of something, and then I might go away and just start doing an edit on it where I'm taking chunks out entirely. I'm writing a new section, a new chapter. I'm editing it, then I'm giving it back to her, and then she's giving feedback. There's other sections where when I came in, we sort of gutted the whole first quarter of the book and rewrote it from ground zero with the same main characters and the same world, but a completely different starting premise. And in those instances, we often worked literally side by side, writing the whole, like word for word, like together, where one of us sort of takes the lead. We put the keyboard in front of us, we're screen sharing, and we talk through an idea, and then one of us starts to type, and then we might pause, and then the other one starts talking, and they write the next few lines, and then the next person talks, and it sort of becomes like a mind meld in a way.
That sounds like two parents of a child, huh?
Yes. Yes.
Good analogy. We
A very
often talk about
long
it as a baby.
a very long gestation period, for sure.
Right. So you were working on it for a while. How long did it take you to write Awake?
It took us about 7 years.
7 years. Did you
Yeah.
do other things at the same time, or was just focus like this
Yes.
is full time, this is all this is all we're doing, or you were doing other things as well?
Yes, we were doing other things. We had a ghostwriting business, so we were writing other people's memoirs in particular,
And writing coaching as well,
and
coaching
coaching other people to write as well. So we were doing that at the same time.
And I have a practice as a spiritual and life purpose coach where I focus on helping people tune into their calling and their in life and in their career. So I was doing that as well. And, Dana did some other interesting projects. So yeah, it was not a singular endeavor.
Well, that really brings me to that next question. What does professionalism mean to you?
That was so interesting to hear that question when we were talking about it. And for me personally, I worked in corporate for a lot of years, and I worked for some of the biggest ad agencies in the world and worked with Fortune 500 companies. And then I also worked with very small boutique agencies. So I've had that notion of professionalism, and then professionalism in terms of having your own business and your own coaching practice or your own ghostwriting practice, and then writing your own novel. So it's really interesting because I think it depends on what world you're operating in, what it means. But for both of us, the thing that we're both really passionate about is bringing a really authentic and soul-centered approach to whatever endeavor we're doing. Because often in our culture, professional can mean almost like a persona. It can mean that you're one person at home, you're one person over here, but when you enter the professional realm, you're acting and behaving in ways that aren't necessarily authentic. So for us, bringing our authentic truth and what we're guided to do from inner guidance, whether you want to call it spiritual guidance, intuitive guidance, bringing that forward into the endeavor is really, really essential. And then, for me, and I think for both of us, for me, there's a few things that are really hallmarks of professionalism, no matter what they are. And for me, excellence, doing things with excellence, doing things with integrity. And then particularly in today's day and age, reliability and responsiveness. We've noticed, and I don't want to bash any generations, but there is less accountability, responsibility, responsiveness, taking responsibility and apologizing when a mistake has gotten made. So I feel like there's some of the sort of old-fashioned professional values that are kind of getting like lost a little bit, and we really value those.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything, Dana? Or?
Well, I think one thing that is important to us too is that in business and being professional doesn't mean leaving your heart and your soul at the door, and so that you're entering into this persona that is kind of this dog eat dog, where I'm going to be this hard business person now, and that's what professional means, because sometimes that's what people interpret professional as, is they leave their kindness at the door. They may show up and be very motivated and ambitious and those kinds of things and driven, but they're not necessarily bringing along their heart much. And so for us, professionalism has a lot of heart to it as well.
Well, I love what you're bringing in. I was just thinking, for you, it had to be even more by juggling together, working on the book together, because there is a responsibility between the two of you at the same time. Probably this has to be completed. The other person cannot do something if it's not. I mean, probably right. I'm just thinking
Yes.
that plus the responsibilities towards the businesses and people out there. There's a lot on your plate that you had. So
Yes.
what is your biggest strength as a professional?
For me, I would say it's my dedication and devotion to the stories I'm telling. Once the story starts to come through, if it really gets a hold of me, I am going to stick with it and be tenacious enough to finish, because finishing an entire book, as you know, Sophia, is a huge accomplishment, and it takes a lot of work to.
Big book. Why did I kiss big book?
Yes, that's the size. Yeah, it's not a little skinny one either. So yeah, I think that's my biggest strength in what I do in my writing.
Well, I have to say, the book is gorgeous, and I haven't finished the whole book yet, but it's written so beautifully, put together, amazing. I'm like obsessed with like little details. For me, everything, the font, the cover, how
Okay.
it's designed inside. I mean, I like pay attention to like every little detail.
That's
And the website that you have put together, but the biggest one, I mean, there are a lot of people today write books, as you know, so it's flood of books, but they're books and books, and it's not the same time. And yours came out, I have this skepticism at first, and I'm like, okay, well, let's see. Here's another book coming out, and then just started watching. You sent me the trailer, and I watched the trailer, and oh my gosh, like had chills all over. It was so amazing, so put together. I knew I have to read this because the precision, the details, the focus, it's just what you've put into it, the heart. It wasn't just some book or people just use a template, write something just to make money or whatever. This was a work of heart.
mm,
So, and I really acknowledge that and see it. It comes through. You can feel it. It's amazing.
mm, thank
What
you.
would you say your biggest weaknesses as a professional?
Well, I have to let Julia answer about what you just said and her biggest strength as a professional, because it really is that what everything you just said, so much of it is because of her excellence.
The reason I was giggling is that for me, I would say that my biggest strength as a professional, if I had to pick one, is vision, holding
That's
a vision.
strength. What about weakness? The weakness.
Possible. Yeah, the weakness we'll answer in a question in a minute, but Dana was just giving me an opportunity because she shared her strength. So the things that you just spoke to, especially when you talked about the details of the font and everything. So Dana's has this devotion and dedication and to commitment to just stick, do it no matter what she's facing. And for me, there's this vision and excellence and attention to detail that's meticulous. She likes to call me, she jokingly calls me Steve Jobs because he was so known for his neurotic attention to detail. So it's very moving to hear you say that. And when you talked about the font, I literally looked through I'm not kidding you, thousands of fonts before arriving on these two fonts. And at a certain point, Dana was like, okay, we got to call it, like, enough.
So, am I hearing 7 years in there?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But it certainly wasn't this kind of thing that why it took 7 years, but that level of excellence and holding in a vision of what something can be, and then sort of not giving up until you feel like it's reflecting that vision with that quality of excellence, And since you asked about weakness, I'll go first and then I'll let Dana say hers. But that, the attention to detail, like if you look at the cover of the book, the eye, the amount of time that was spent on picking the eye that we used, and then the shades of blue, and then the gradation of where did the half line go? Was it too much to this side, too much to that side? Like that level of detail, it creates excellence and beauty and the vibration you're speaking of, and it can slow things down and it can drive people nuts. So my greatest strength really is my weakness, because it's like I have to learn when to back off, when to when to stop, when it's enough. And Dana and I have a joke. She's like, fonts, she'll just say the word font and I know what she means. It's like, okay, enough. Like you got to stop now. So yeah, so for me, my strength is my weakness also.
Yeah, I hear you. And then sometimes no one is going to notice except for you.
Me and the 10% of other people who are as equally neurotic.
Yes.
It's like,
you notice?
I see it. It's not good enough.
That's right. Yeah. So my weakness is organization. I'm a creative. I just don't, my desktop's a mess. I lose stuff all the time. I call Julia and I'm pulling my hair out and she'll be like, oh, here it is. Drop it to me in an email. I'm like, oh, it just, so that's my biggest weakness. It's, the organization of things is really out. I just can't quite grasp it, but it's important. I think it's really important. So thank God she's very
excited. I'm very organized, but
yes,
which is why I will send her the same exact documents 5 and 6 times.
Yeah.
What does your morning routine look like? Like your first 60 minutes of your day? I'm sure that you have to have a super routine to be able to do everything that you do.
Yeah, well, coffee. And definitely when we start our day, we always we try to be really intentional about what we're doing, about the energy that we're doing it with. We call in the light, we set intentions, and then we talk over what needs to be done. And we try to, move forward with that in a way that is as in harmony as possible, as little madness as as we can get. Sometimes things go into madness anyway, but we do start that way because it is important how you begin the day. So that's the main thing that we do.
The other thing is we're both very sensitive to our environment. We both love beauty, particularly when you're in a creative endeavor. So we've worked together where she's in one place, I'm in another. We're both in the same apartment, and so if we happen to be together, if it's finding a cafe, we both love to work in cafes, to find a cafe that's very uplifting, has good energy, good music, good coffee, good smells, good people. And if you're working at home, it's like it's like candles, essential oils, incense, salt lamp, classical music, some sort of music. We've playlists that we've put together on Spotify, different kinds, like anything from jazz to classical to the best movie scores out there. We've all these different playlists. So part of it's like kind of getting in the right vibe and mood.
I really hear you. What I mean, not just hearing you, you're saying it, I'm looking at all the things that I have in front of me over here.
Yeah.
Say, this goddess, this candle, this, yeah, totally. I totally hear that. What would you say is most fulfilling to you about having written and published Awake?
Well, it's just people's responses that we're getting. It's been
Mm,
out a bit over a month, and it's just been really profound. People are the range is really incredible, from just being so entertained, which is so fun, and to have something that's uplifting and really entertaining people, where they're just blowing through it. We had one woman send us a picture of her wall, and she had used sticky notes and put them up on the wall to track all the clues that they're finding as they go along, the characters in the book. And she's like, this was my night. I couldn't go to bed. People are telling us a lot. I stayed up till 3:00 in the morning. I read it in the 2 days. It's like, I'm such a slow reader. I could never read anything in 2 days. But also, even more, I think more importantly, which entertaining people is super important, but is that people are sharing about how the book is changing them. One young woman, 31 years old, said she had been so depressed, like feeling such a despondency about where we are as humanity, and really having a negative view of the future. And she said she read this book and she has hope again, for our future and for humanity. And another woman just told me that she had been stuck on a fence. She said, like, her pants were stuck on a fence, and she was depressed and she just couldn't move and just totally stuck. And she said she read the book, and she said she feels like she's on the other side of the fence, just running now, and things are just flowing in her life when they were just really not working. And so those kinds of things are just such incredible feedback, and they're getting super entertained at the same time, which I can't imagine a better combination.
that's I can so hear that. I'm like just soaking in your words that you're saying, because it truly is super um how do you say, uplifting, empowering to hear, and that you leave a mark
Yes,
in the
really.
universe and in people's lives, and really created something meaningful.
Yeah.
What would you say what is awake, and why is it important in today's world? And how could it support professionals in their lives, if you would have any tips for them?
If we would have any tips for them?
Yeah.
You mean, what does it mean? What is awake, as in the novel, or what does it mean to be awake?
How both, maybe, because it has some meaning, right? That you embodied in the
Yeah.
novel about awake.
Yeah.
So how would that meaning could be translated into a tip, or what it is? Why is it important for people to be awake, especially being a professional?
So let me say a little bit about this and let Dana add. So to give context, so the book is called Awake. It wasn't originally called Awake. It went through 3 other titles before it landed here, but it's definitely the perfect one. The book is about, I'll just say a sentence or two about what the book's about to give context to why it's called that. So the book is based basically in the idea, the premise is it's the untold story of why the world did not end on December 21st, 2012, according to the Mayan prophecy. and that the reason the world didn't end is this untold secret story that the earth was saved by extraordinary intervention from an awakened alien civilization far more evolved than our own. So this awakened civilization is the premise of the book, and the book opens in this awakened world on this planet called Akara, where this species has gone through this horrific period in their evolution that we call the ravaging. And
Like what we're going through right now.
Which is basically very parallel to what we're going through right now. Yes. And that, so much so that the civilization takes itself so far that there's only, a few 100,000 people left on the planet. They've brought themselves from a multi-billion person planet that far to the edge of extinction through warfare, climate crisis, pandemic, nuclear destruction, all kinds of things. And essentially what happens on the planet is that there is a spontaneous awakening in consciousness among a small group of people who decide to stop fighting. They decide to stop fighting over the final resources and engaging in this level of battle. And they sort of leave the mainstream and they seclude in these areas across these pockets all over the planet that are called vital zones. And they really, in their wisdom, and they're called the wise ones, in their wisdom, they stop fighting and they really sort of generate a transformation in their own consciousness, so much so that it creates an awakening across the planet. And this awakening ushers in a new period called the rebirthing. So, awake for us is as a nod to awakening. Another word, you can call it enlightenment. The word awakening today is more prevalent than enlightenment, which seems like it's somehow for the Buddha under the Bodhi tree or, reserved for Jesus, that the term has more accessibility. But it's really about awakening in consciousness to the fact that we're not just bodies in meat suits walking around in this three-dimensional form that's going to end. And then that's the end of that, is that who we are spiritual beings, that we're really all one and all connected, that our consciousness transcends our body and is eternal. And that as we awaken to that, we operate from a conscious, loving place in the world where there's no against this, there's no either or, there's no enemies, that the interest becomes collective and it becomes transformational. So that's really what the title is about.
So you would say, let's say, for the professional awakening, it's in a smaller scale. Applying that in their life creates more unity, more wholeness, more connectedness, more success.
That's right. And a service
More
orientation.
order.
More order, yes, harmony. And it's a service orientation, service to others orientation, rather than a service to self orientation. And that being the measure of success as much or more than the bottom line. That how much can your business serve others with whatever that you're doing, and how can you connect people? How can you connect? How can you uplift the environment? How can you be at least conscious about the environment? Even if you're not doing something to really change it, at least be conscious in your business about the environment, because it's all one. We're all one together. And spend those few extra pennies on paper straws, a half cent on paper straws at your restaurant than on plastic straws. Those kinds of things where the bottom line isn't the most important thing. And that capitalism isn't kind of the traditional way of doing business, which is walk all over people to get to the top. And there's no sense of accountability, and it's all about profit margin. So that's what.
When you're at the top and there is no one else left, there is no more top either.
That's right. That's it. Exactly. Yeah.
And it's through practices, it's like we all know what it's like when we're at our worst self, and we're stressed out and we're focused only on ourselves and we're irritable and we're cutting corners and we don't feel present and calm and and loving and connected. It's like, so the opposite of that is present, calm, connected, caring, relaxed, trusting. And so in terms of tips, it's like whatever practices help bring you there to a more awakened state in your own consciousness. That again, like this separation that we have in our world between professional, career, corporate, job is over here, and then personal life is over here. And that's really a false divide, because we're just people. We're people in this moment, in this environment, and we bring our consciousness with us
I love
wherever
that
we go.
you're saying that you're living professional, you're professional in living your life.
That's right. Yes.
Yes, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you love books. You read a lot of books. I know that you have a ton of quotes that you love, but I bet there is a quote that you came up with in a wake that you love the most. Do you have a quote from your book that
Yes.
you actually love and would love to share?
Absolutely. And we love this question, of course, as writers. It's like, of course, we want to share a quote, you know. So it takes a little bit of setting up the context, which Julia just did some. So this is for Mobius is our main character. He's trying to get into the Discovery Corps, which is the space program on Akara at the beginning of the book. And he is about to jump out of a hovercraft to complete his final test to be able to see if he gets into the Discovery Corps. And his mentor, who is Kaya, who's this incredible awakened being, she says, "Make the leap," Kaya said to Mobius, to remind him to stay connected to the wisdom, the infinite love and intelligence of the universe. This saying, "Make the leap," it's used throughout the book. It's used in the motto for the Discovery Corps, and this is another quote: "From data to information to knowledge to wisdom, make the leap." And there are two other ways that they use the expression. Yes, they also use the expression to mean that when they leap out of space-time and into the quantum field, so they can travel faster than the speed of light and relocate across galaxies. Space travel, of course, it's sci-fi. And the other way is when it's kind of like we use break a leg or good luck. But really what make the leap means throughout the novel is the leap from egoic consciousness to awakened consciousness. So this quote, "Make the leap," is probably our favorite from the book.
I love that. So I will ask you to write that quote in the comments
Okay.
after we're done, so people can use that quote if they like it. I think it's a phenomenal quote.
Okay.
I have a surprise question for you. That's my it's my signature question. You didn't get that. I did not send that question to you because
True.
it's a secret.
Right.
So imagine that your name changed today and you are no longer called Dana and Julia, and you have to choose a new name out of these four: success, trust, courage, or passion. Which of these names would you choose, and what would change in your life as a result?
Mm.
Ooh. Success, courage, trust, and passion are our
Yes.
choices.
Yeah, success, trust, courage,
Can
and
we
passion.
hyphenate?
You mean like first and last?
Great. I would say trust for me. And that's really setting aside my will and trusting in the flow of life. I've definitely been one who's kind of can tend to go into a bit of a battle mode, and I'm pushing and making things happen and those kinds of things. But the longer I go on this journey, the more I discover that trusting and letting go and stopping that kind of efforting and pushing is actually the most grace possible. and that things happen in a way that is far less exhausting, for one thing, and just much more harmonious. So, and for some reason, it still continues to be a challenge, trusting. But so I would definitely go with trust
So
myself.
your name is Trust now.
Trust. Thank you. I love it.
What is
I don't
your
know what
name
we're
now?
going to do here. Are we allowed to have the same name? Because my answer is most definitely trust, because I feel like the other three, I've really lived those other three in my life very comfortably. But trust is really the surrender of my will, the ego will, to the higher will, the divine will, and really allowing something to flow and not making things happen, and not forcing things to happen, and trusting that something is meant to be, including how successful the book is or isn't. And what becomes the measure of success? Is it the book sales, or is it the impact it has on those that it impacts, and trusting that it reaches those it's supposed to reach in the timing it's supposed to reach it, and that we put together this book and the website and the trailer. To us, it was like a gemstone, and we really wanted to create it that and then give it to the universe. And then it's a little bit like, okay, now it's yours. You decide, you do with it what you want. And and trusting that's like, rather than demanding this book has to be a bestseller by this time and make this much money and make a name for us, it's like really letting that go, and knowing, those one or two people who write us these testimonials, who had a life-changing experience, and seeing somebody that they're so in such delight that they're putting a map up on their wall. It's like trusting that that's who it's meant to reach. That's who it's meant to touch. So we both happen to have the same name now. We're going to have to decide what we do about that if we write another, for our next book.
Yeah.
Confusing.
Oh, this is good, because I mean, you'll find even different ways that you see trust in these different ways, and the opportunity to embody it even more. Ideally, something you said, and I had like this flash in front of my eyes, was like, oh my gosh, I saw it. And then I'm like, ah, I lost it. I don't know I can't remember what it was exactly. It really connected with me about that release and let go and trust. The source knows why you wrote that book, who you wrote it for, why it's written that way. And it's, I remember what it was there. That people read your book and then they write comments or they tell you what they read. And you go like, really? Where did you read that? You're like, what's in your book? And like, where? I wrote that? Like they did in a way that we will never know
Right.
what comes to them, that what they need to see. And you may be writing one thing and they're receiving a different message through you. And I think it's such a beautiful gift of giving that instrument for people to grow and evolve and find themselves.
That is so true. People do find things in all of my books where it's just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was in there, but yeah, I can see that, and that's so cool that you see that and interpret it that way, or glean something from it that I didn't even know was happening. These things, this creativity happens on another level. It's an archetypal level, and then we kind of download it into this dimension. And so those ideas are bigger than we are, and they come through, and it really is that process of sharing the creativity where it fulfills itself. The fullness of that process is the creative output, but then the sharing of it, and then that circle of creativity. And so you're so right about that. I love that when that happens.
I have a question. I have a quick question to the audience about the name, and I want to invite the audience to imagine that your name changed today, and you have to choose a new name out of these four: success, trust, courage, or passion. And which of these names would you choose, and what would change in your life as a result? So I would invite you to write your chosen word in the comments or send me a message and I'll send you a gift. And I want to thank you, ladies, for being here with me today. It was such a great interview. It was so amazing to hear, receive your wisdom and your sharing, your book, your love is just incredible. What where people can find you?
So the first place would be awakethenovel.com, which is our website. And if you go to our website and you sign up for our newsletter, we will send you a free gift of something called the true story behind the story, the incredible extraterrestrial encounter that inspired Awake. And this is about a true encounter that Dana had over 20 years ago. That was the first seeds for the story, and it's pretty extraordinary story. So you can go there. You can follow us on Facebook. Our Facebook is what, Dana?
I
It's
read that story. It's the secret. I read it. It's awesome. Don't
Oh,
miss
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
that.
And our Facebook, Dana, is
It's Facebook, danaandjulia.com/Dana and Julia. And that's our Facebook page as well. But check out our website. The trailer's on there, and there's such a cool
trailer. It's like a whole world. We have a whole thing called Discover the World of Awake, and it's really kind of a very experiential website.
Awakethenovel.com.
Professionals, thank you so much for tuning in to our show, the Professionals on Air podcast, a podcast where we discuss how to walk, talk, live, and grow authentically as a professional in the 21st century. If you want to be featured, if you want to be a featured guest, please send me a direct message. And to learn more about Dana and Julia and Awake, here it is. Visit the website. The link will be in the comments together with the quote. Also, we'll put the quote from the book. And we appreciate your comments, your feedback, and can't wait to see you next Wednesday, where I will introduce you to Jordan Trinager. Can pronounce her last name. She is a certified brain injury specialist and holistic health coach. So you definitely don't want to miss that. And as always, send us your questions. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you.